Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Windows on the World. Got a great show for you tonight and a very interesting guest. Well, of course, we all have very interesting guests on every show we do. The RBN shows during the week. Tuesdays and Thursdays, 8 p.m. on Republic Broadcasting Network. Yes, you can find that at windowsontheworld.net. And I'm thinking of going on a little tour, going to do some talks around the country. I've been invited to a few places, so that's the strategy. There's lots happening at the moment. Do help us out if you can on Patreon and PayPal. I haven't asked anyone to do that for ages, so I've made a note of that because, chickpeas are running out at Windows Towers. But I'd like to thank everyone, actually, who's been writing into me. Really interesting stuff. And thanks for all the information and thanks for the encouragement. I've phoned people up, or they phoned me, and they really are encouraging about the show, which is great because we never wanted to be one of these big shows where we covered everything. We've kept really to what we wanted to do. And it's actually a great back catalogue, I think, in windowsontheworld.net. Do have a look at that because when you go back in there, you'll find stuff from years ago, and it really resonates with what's going on now because it's really like an archive of the whole governance system that we're now under. And we were talking about this going around the country, and of course COVID-19 is the accelerator of the whole thing. But yes, before COVID, I was speaking to groups all over the country, and maybe it is time for a road trip. Oh, how full of hate is that? Going out, being selfish, spreading the virus. Well, what we're trying to do is stop the mind virus from spreading. But to recap on our show, a few weeks ago now, COVID, Puppets and Protest. We did another one called COVID Protest Planning, which followed COVID protest plan, I think. It's the activists versus the narcissists, really. That's what we're talking about, I think. But who's winning? In our recent report, we said that in the new communitarian system, the outliers have they have to be incorporated. Therefore, resistance is part of the overall plan. This is very, very important because the revolutionary spirit is built in to the overall plan. There has to be room for the revolutionary spirit, which is encompassed within the communitarian system. The revolutionary principle is used by every failed protest group on the planet. Your resistance is part of the plan. Your struggle is essential in making the new system look like there are indeed dissenting voices. Dissenting voices are used as an example of course, dissenting voices. They, of course, will never actually be heard. Really, what we're talking about here is a thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. In other words, you get two opposites and they become one. They all become incorporated. So, on a day-to-day basis, you could give the public two lies. And it doesn't matter what they are, for and against. Doesn't matter. Those two polar opposites create the third way, and this is basic social engineering. The two opposites are necessary. Further distractions give the illusion of diverse voices, and NGOs and charities and people like George Soros know this stuff inside out. Really, it's not very complicated. It's actually very simple. They are all working towards the same end as they are being steered by change agents and the revolutionaries themselves. They are given their side as the new revolutionaries are saying, choose your side. Going up against the locked gates of global governance deception will only result in exhaustion, defeat and death. The rabble-rousers themselves are indeed a rabble. Throwing insults and trifles at demons will bring the full force of their wrath. They will twist your words with theirs on every platform that they own. They will make the world turn against you as their lies are relentless and their legions many. This is why the compromised are allowed to speak. Because they don't achieve anything. Better to be strategic and have silver bullets in your armoury than let the demons win by deception. Well, that's the philosophical rambling of the start of the show over with, but we must, though, make them stumble over their own obstacles and fall in their own tracks. Now, I've been doing this for quite a long time. It's good fun, actually, because when you get these people coming along trying to get in your way, use a bit of strategy and it's amazing what can be done. So why fall into confrontational traps of your own making? We need to recap for this show because we're going to go into the psychology of protest tonight. This is from Our Common Future, a document that came out in 1987, which I've read out on a few shows, but there's nothing wrong with reading it out again. This was a blueprint for the new form of global governance. Oh, that form of global governance that we're actually in now. It said in 1987, the changes in human attitudes that we call for depend on a vast campaign of education, debate and public participation. So, education is indoctrination, debate must be controlled and managed, and all participation has to be steered. This is the role of the communitarian system. From 2010 in the UK, it was called the Big Society. That is the stuff I've been talking about for years. So check out the back catalogue. All the greatest hits are there. Oh yes, the Club of Rome, Agenda 21, global governance, global warming even, the history of it all. This is also from Our Common Future in 1987. At the global level, governance has been viewed primarily as intergovernmental relationships, but it must now be understood as also involving non-government organisations, citizens' movements, multinational corporations and the global capital market. Well, we're going to talk tonight how all of those things come together. Yes, NGOs, citizens' movements, multinational corporations and the globalist capital market. They're all linked because the globalists lead the anti-globalists. And in fact, when we find out often, the anti-globalists were in fact the globalists all along. Interacting with these, it says in 1987 in Our Common Future, our global mass media of dramatically enlarged influence. That means they must control all narratives. There must be an agreed global framework for actions and policies to be carried out at appropriate levels. A multifaceted strategy for global governance is required. So in other words, it's unstructured in the eyes of the public because they can't see it. So they think that there's a government. Well, we have governance. So all of this includes your participation in everything. This would include the generalised alternative media, which is usually just an echo chamber for accepted dissent, which has no aim and no chance of a solution, yet alone uniting a large group. It's actually there to divide and fragment things. The more people are allowed to air their frustrations, the more desperation and apathy there is. All good for demoralisation and the implementation of the already planned solution. As long as there is no solution, it's allowed. So in other words, if you've got a solution, watch out, they're coming for you. We have this sort of media at all protest type events. In other words, sort of things that portray themselves as slightly alternative. That's called controlling the narrative. You know, you have to give the impression that there's something for everybody. So let's have a look at an example of that. So we go up to someone in the street and go, what brought you here today to the protest? Well, I'm sick of this government not listening to the ordinary man in the street. Well, that's great, you see, because that's the sort of pointless statement that the mainstream need. They're with you all the way on that one. And another one, of course, the government aren't listening. Oh, quality, we'll have that all day long. I mean, that's missed the bullseye by about 3,000 miles. Great stuff for the media, that one. It's not the government, so that's great. A complete waste of time and distraction, you see. Moving on to the present, though, we are now seeing the near completion of the project. The asset stripping of all countries is accelerating. The Bank of England is talking of negative interest rates to help businesses, help create more debt, impose more loans, take more control. The World Bank announces another 160 billion to be rolled out to take control of more assets in more countries. I think that was dollars, but I'm not sure. I'm still going through the documents. This is a global coup. And guess what? You're not involved. But also, you will not be left behind. You will become part of the new system, whether you like it or not. You have a right to be controlled and managed, and of course put down when necessary. You have rights. The rights to the life you are given. It is your fiduciary duty as part of the new system to be part of the sustainability plan for the world. And under the new system, you are sustainable until you become unnecessary for sustainability. Then, of course, you're unsustainable. You will be harvested for energy and labour until it is time to let you go. This is the communitarian system. You'll be forced to act in the common interest. So again, in 1987, in Our Common Future, it was stated this would happen through education, development, and guess what? Law enforcement. So the outliers need their dissent manufactured for them. Everyone will play their part in the new system. Totalitarianism, and the word totalitarian is not a good word. So I think we should call it something else. What should we call it? Oh, I know. Community. You have a duty to the new community, so don't be full of hate, don't be selfish, and join in. The control of the public with voices of fake dissent is extremely dumb, but guess what? It works. The uprisings, which are steered and managed by the very people who are half aware, are meant to be opposing, but they're just part of the strategy, see? Strategic intelligence. It's not a term known to the public, and it's used by very few. Well, look at the World Economic Forum. They know a bit about strategy, and their newsletter is actually called Strategic Intelligence. Why not educate yourself and subscribe to it? Find out what they're doing at the top end. Okay, the anti-globalists have nothing to do. They need someone to lead them and steer their protests. The globalists steer the anti-globalists into the policies of the globalists. What a shock that is to those who see it. So why can't people see it? The fake leaders of fake protests are easy to spot, though. From Occupy to Extinction Rebellion, our shows and films have exposed a whole circus of fake dissent led by egotists, narcissists and lobbyists for globalists. The agents of change are in every part of public office, and of course, the accepted voice of rebellion has its own backers, their own placard carriers and their own agents. The COVID operation is no different, except that it is an important driver for the end game. Some of those involved, though, should know better, as they describe themselves as activists. There are many types of these. George Soros and global agencies use protest to drive change and cover for fake revolutions all over the world. Britain is the home of psychological warfare. Our own government even has the behavioural insights team. The whole area is so public they even put it on the BBC. Our own government talk about nudging and steering you, so why should it be a surprise that there are multiple agencies doing the same thing? So why then are the public still so gullible? Insight and experience are lost in the desperate enthusiasm for, wait for it, hang on a minute, I think you know what I'm talking about. Yes, change. Whose sweets? Our sweets. We are the 99%. Choose your side. The slogans have to be divisive and simple. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis. One big communitarian happy global family. All will be incorporated and no one will be left behind. Demos, the public policy think tank, which instructs many organisations and of course the BBC, Sky News et al., with their papers and their steering. Demos, a quote from Demos, the public policy think tank. The new democracy will work with a combination of government, open infiltration and citizens groups taking direct action. Let that one sink in. I've mentioned it a few times before, but it is very important. The new democracy will work with a combination of government, open infiltration and citizens groups taking direct action. Citizens groups, Black Lives Matter, Extinction Rebellion. Well, have a look at all of these protest groups, some of them under the banner of anarchism, some of it under leftism. It doesn't really matter. They're all leading you into the same outcome, the big communitarian, big new society. So now we have every angle covered. What about those domestic terrorists, though, who want to be the change they want to see? In 2019, and now, a few days ago, just announced by the BBC, get this. A court rules, this is the High Court British MI5 agents can murder, kidnap and torture. That's legally, by the way. This is from 2019, but they have actually followed that up with a new article in the last couple of days on the BBC website. Do have a look. The use of covert agents is an essential tool for MI5 as it carries out its job of keeping the country safe, a spokesman for the Home Office said in a statement. MI5 has been illegally allowing its informants to commit serious crimes, potentially including murder, kidnap and torture for decades, a tribunal has heard. Judges on the Investigatory Powers Tribunal declared that MI5 has the power to permit informants to operate in criminal groups, even if the policy itself confers no legal immunity. Informants, also known as agents, are recruited to gather intelligence on targets. These agents are often already involved in the networks being targeted and need to maintain a cover in order to gather critical evidence for investigators. And of course, they also infiltrate discussion groups, instigate hate campaigns on journalists, and I have been looking at this for quite some time. It's very sinister and very dark, and in some ways, quite ineffective. But if they can kill you, well, then it becomes effective, doesn't it, I suppose? This now gives the bigger picture of what I was talking about at the beginning of the show. Can you see how it all crosses over now? So we've now got this crossover from corporate agents into the intelligence services. And to me, this is incredibly important because I uncovered a cabal of these people several years ago. They set up websites to libel me. And guess what? When I found who it was, I was really surprised. They were the nice fellas who'd met me outside the Royal Courts of Justice and we'd gone for a drink and we'd been chatting all night and they wanted me to invest in Panama. Not that I could because I got no money, but that was 18 months before the Panama Papers. So this stuff is actually very interesting and I've uncovered quite a few of these characters. They work in the public and the private and in government agencies. It all crosses over. Even those who start with good intentions will be steered and controlled, you see. This is the point. This is what they're trying to do. This brings us into the recent protests now and, of course, the COVID action plan. The usual balance of narcissism, ego and ineptitude mixed with useful idiots and agents to steer the whole process into the desired outcome always has the same result. Do you know what it is? I'll tell you. Failure. Whether those who participated feel worthy or loser heroes is completely irrelevant. Have-a-go heroes are no good if they're losers. Strategy is all. Without it, in this cesspit of British intelligence, you are wasting your time. Your goodwill is being harvested by different types and levels of parasites. The narcissists who become the voice of dissent. The tactics of those steering you into failure or the required end result are pretty similar each time. Because these people work in a hierarchical situation, they cannot break ranks and do anything unexpected because they've always got someone looking over their shoulder. This is where humour becomes a great weapon, because humour is ambiguous, so therefore cannot be used by them. It is all done to a template, as were the recent but worthy failed efforts in protest. There was no intended outcome, therefore there was no outcome. There comes a time, though, when destructive and compromised ties have to be fully broken, and there is no time to lose now. I have had to cut off a lot of people over the years, and now I have reached a level of intolerance which you could say is less than zero. That doesn't mean that I'm an intolerant person. I love hearing from people, but I can see through a wrong 'un a mile off. And as I've been doing it for years, I can spot them, and I won't have anything to do with them at all. So what I would say to you is this. Our shows may not be the most popular or the biggest on the Conspiracy Circus network, but we have a word which I will always treasure and always adhere to, and that's integrity. I have never been part of any controlled opposition narratives, and I never will. This results in, yes, a smaller audience, but I think a much better one. We have a better audience than most of what I call the Conspiracy Circus and the fake alternative media. Thinkers and influencers are important in these times, and we need more of them. Now let's get on to before, of course, we introduce our guest for today, the Trafalgar Square events recently and the Conspiracy Circus tour over the past few weeks. Now, this is being steered into oblivion by incompetence and deliberate subversion, in my opinion, and from my painstaking research. The reactionaries against lockdown and mask wearing are simple to control. Bring in some infiltration, just take over the whole thing. Those who want to speak are only interested in, guess what? Speaking. Well, it's like players only love you when they're playing. It was Fleetwood Mac, wasn't it? This is a very important point, though, because if you're wrapped up in what you want to do, and you want to get your speech together and you want to do your best performance, you will miss a lot of things around you. Well, I'm saying you will, but I won't. I've been doing it too long. And they're not difficult to spot, the infiltrators and the narcs and the narcissists. Yes, it's a little bit like show business, you see, because a lot of these people think they're in show business. And show business is a cruel mistress because you can appear and then disappear, and that's what they do. There's loads of these over the years I've uncovered. They appear out of nowhere, they have a ludicrous backstory, and then they just disappear again. Yes, they must, though, have an aim. The main reason for people attending is to show their unity in dissent. If there is no unity in dissent, then there is no point. What about the petitioning to get rid of the COVID Act? That'd be a good idea, wouldn't it? Just thinking that if these protests had an aim, they might be useful. Well, what about anything definite, petitioning to get rid of the COVID Act and bringing lawyers on? At least it would be something to talk about in the weekly meetups, wouldn't it? New developments as to the progress could be announced at the events and new aims could be announced. You could keep something going, you see. Otherwise, you get demoralised, and demoralisation, destabilisation, crisis, normalisation. Oh, that's what the communists did, wasn't it? Yeah, but what happened in Trafalgar Square yesterday? Well, the headline speakers were David Icke and Piers Corbyn. Well, actually, Icke come on and he bowed before the crowd. Now, this is a big problem here. This was not one of his 8-hour lectures. It was not about him. So what's he doing? He stated, "To think people used to laugh at me in the street once. Well, David, it could happen again, You never know." He said, "If you speak your truth, the world comes to you." Yes, David, but what happens if you speak the truth? The truth cannot be subverted. So let's get to the truth. That's not so popular, but I think we need it. So yes, what I was thinking was when David bowed to the audience, I was thinking, don't people usually do that at the encore? He said, "I have dreamed of moments like this so many times." Well, he did also say, "Take your mask off," even though no one was wearing one. His speech was basically a bunch of quotes and cliches from his past speeches. "No more little me, be gone with you," he said. He said, which was quite weird, he said they always kill the good guys. Well, at least you're still here, David. Piers Corbyn raised his fist and shouted his chants, just for a change. Well, Icke and Corbyn finished saying basically nothing, and the crowd were not already aware that anything was going to happen. But the voice of credibility then took the stage, Heiko Schoening, a German doctor. And very shortly after he took the stage, the territorial support group marched in, stormed the crowd, kettled him in, and he was arrested. Mr. Icke went to get the train, I think, surrounded by his entourage, and Mr. Corbyn did his Citizen Smith routine, walking down the road surrounded by his entourage. Show business is a cruel mistress. There is no time to waste, so why are we wasting time? I had nothing to do with the event, actually, but I went to the one before, and I met some great people. In fact, some people I've met up with, so these events can be very good for networking. But it was the same as previous co-opted events, really, this one. The event itself, though, lacked any inspiration or direction. Now, that was my impression. Other people who went there may have been quite excited by it, but maybe I'm a bit long in the tooth now. Maybe I'm a bit jaded. I spent 20 years on the road, man, Time for something more inspiring, though, more vibrant, diverse, and, dare I say, effective. And with that in mind, I'm going to bring in tonight's guest, Jane, who was actually there yesterday and has attended many of these events. And we've had a few conversations about it. Are you there, Jane?
Hello, good evening. I'm here.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, I gave quite a long intro, Jane, but there was quite a lot to say. And these shows really an archive and a library of what's actually happening. And in actual fact, the real issues, I find it's really important to get to the real issues. And with these protests, the impression that I get is that we're not always getting to the real issues. What do you think about this?
I think that this is my opinion, that the protests over the years have become further and further and further away from the actual issue that people are there to, protest against. Because as technology has, progressed as well, with that, people are not progressing. They are being fooled into thinking that they're progressing and are becoming more intelligent because they've got our AI, artificial intelligence, which doesn't, you have to still keep logic. Logic is so important, and thinking for yourself, being a free thinker, not having your brain infiltrated. Now, the people at that march, I think most of them were there with good intentions yesterday. They are sick of things, but they are also really lost in this wave of disinformation that is just becoming bigger and bigger. I think we're at a pivotal moment, and I don't think that really demonstrations now are, they're not what we want them to be anymore. People, the real people, are not getting heard at all, and the people who are present at these things, they're being misled completely. It's the height of deception at the moment. I think, for me personally, I've never seen such deception on such a grand scale in my lifetime.
Yeah, well, this is interesting because I've seen this a lot, and you've been around for years, so have I. And
watch it, mate. Watch it.
well, a couple of years anyway,
Yeah.
Well, what happened, you see, was when I started seeing how these things were controlled, it gave me a different insight. And the other thing about it is that these things are very easily controlled. In fact, by their own design, they have to be controlled. But the people who come in are generally the wrong kind of people to be running the protest. Now, I'm not making any specific allegations about the thing here, but the point is, right, that these things should be a spectacle, an event, and there should be some tight information, and there has to be an aim. Without an aim, there is no point. People get demoralised. I think I made that point at the start, but I want to reiterate it. I think it's really important. And what I've noticed over the years is it works in exactly the same way. In other words, you get the people to have their fake protest, you get then the agent provocateurs coming in so the police can shut it down. It's dead simple. There's nothing to it, but it always works the same way. And once you've seen one, you've seen them all. So in my view, it has to be something different. But as far as the spectacle goes and the information presented, I wasn't too impressed with these events. In fact, also a point I wanted to make was that the PA was so inadequate, you could only hear it right at the front. But that, in a way, is not the point. I think the first one in Trafalgar Square, this anti-lockdown, anti-mask thing, anti-COVID, was actually really quite good fun. And I think that as a day out, it can work. But as something effective, it doesn't work, in my opinion, because I think people are demoralised and they need something to latch onto. Now, I'm not talking about let's get someone to lead it. That's the worst thing you can do. And in Ireland, they're doing some very interesting things. My friend Kieran Boyle over there, he's actually sent me something today that they're looking for the organisers of the protest or the gathering. Well, they actually had no organisers, and that's the point. So a bit of strategy, I think, is needed.
Well, I went yesterday. I've made a few discoveries myself leading up to this protest. I was all for going to this protest, with the intention of demonstrating my rights to refuse the vaccines and everything else they're trying to put on us, the draconian laws, everything they want to bring in, and to bring awareness to people that the whole thing is a farce, everything, I believe. Now, I just, in the end, after my own findings, we'd already booked to go to London, so we carried it through. But I was a bystander at the back underneath the National Gallery. I wanted to watch to see what was unfolding, and I knew how it was going to pan out, absolutely. And I think the PA system was, come on, this is supposed to be like a national, really important protest. It was the shoddiest setup you could ever imagine. My voice would have been loud on its own and more clearer. The whole thing, I believe, was set up to give the appearance of shoddiness and unprofessionalism. They were misinformed, uninformed people, weak speakers, not even proper activists speaking, not true people. I don't care. Anybody wants to have a go at me about it, I've got the evidence to back myself up on this. Okay. And then at the end, I spoke to the police when I was leaving. We had to catch a train, so we left just before it kicked off. I spoke to the policeman and I said to him, how is this possible? How is this allowed, this protest? I just want to know. I was kind of speaking to him like a bystander walking past, whatever. And he said, oh, it's allowed. I said, well, is this being given permission then? With all the new legislations and rules that have just been introduced. And he said, yeah, it's all been written off. It's all legal and it's all gone through Westminster Council. And I said, okay, so I could get a freedom of information and there'll be a paper trail on this. And he said, yeah, absolutely. So that's from the horse's mouth yesterday, that was given permission to take place just after Boris had given out all these new restrictions. To me, that doesn't add up for a start, okay? That protest at the end, when it was stormed at the end, was conveniently timed for when the speakers had finished and the real truthful speaker was about to begin. Okay, if the people in that crowd cannot join those two dots together themselves, then we need some help here. People's brains need to start waking up very, very quickly, because if they can't put two and two together to see that was controlled opposition at work, then I don't know. I think, we need to inject a lot of hope into people if they can't connect those dots.
Well, Jane, we do need hope, not hate. Now, the thing is, right?
Definitely don't need that.
The thing is about this is that if you look at the banality of what protest has become, it's been dumbed down by design. So we get the Open Society funding these groups like Black Lives Matter. Now, anybody who thinks Black Lives Matter has anything to do with Black lives is a bit of a moron. But the thing is, Jane, there are a lot of virtue signalling morons out there. And when I actually put on Democracy Now! Their Facebook page, they were talking about, what was they talking about? They were talking about Black Lives Matter. And I said, well, Black Lives Matter and Democracy Now! Are part of the same franchise. Now, I had to spell it out for them because I just got lots of ad hominem attacks, like, I suppose you're a Republican. I suppose you think Elvis lives on the dark side of the moon. The usual things, right? But when I actually put it down and said, George Soros, Open Society, funds both Democracy Now! And Black Lives Matter. They said, proof ? I said, it's on the Open Society website. Right? Now, there's a huge problem here, Jane, because people don't want to do the basics. So if you've got people who are intelligence people or corporates who are coming in and taking over to control the narrative, the public really are not even going to get that. Now, I saw this years ago. I can spot them a mile off, and I'm not even really looking for them. But the point is that the same thing happens again and again and again. My question, though, is this. Why are people who are meant to be experienced so-called activists going along with these people who are steering them into the direction of going nowhere? That's my question. What do you think?
I really don't think there are that many true activists. I mean, no, I don't think hardly any true activists who put the work in, do the proper research, and put the money where the mouth is, okay? There aren't many of those people who actually get a platform to speak on because they're shut down, shut out. Nobody wants to work with them. It's the same old clique of people that work together. They bring someone up new from the inside, never seen them before. The speakers yesterday, okay? David Icke, for instance. I've never followed him. I don't have anything to do with him. I just don't follow people, okay? I'm not sheepy at all. I do my own research, but this man is David Icke on. He has a mass following of I don't know what kind of people. Now, this man must surely vet the people he has around him, because if he's, targeted and he's so a threat to the establishment, I am damn sure he would vet people around him. It took me 5 minutes to find out the people around him. Okay, 5 minutes, which proves to me that they're all bent, everybody. No one's going to prove me any different to that. Nobody can actually change what I've found out and seen with my own eyes and experienced. Right? Nobody can say to me, "Oh, that didn't happen. That didn't happen." Yes, it did happen. It happened to me, and I was there. Okay. So don't tell me that any of these speakers yesterday are kosher. They are not. They are not. You cannot get up on a platform and speak from the heart with truth on your side if you know the person next to you is out to destroy the very thing that you are trying to protect.
I want to jump in here because there's a point I wanted to make. There's a difference between those who are agent provocateurs and basically people who are in there to sabotage. And I know quite a few of those over the years.
Sure.
And you know what, Jane? They're still doing it. And you tell people, they go, no, they wouldn't do that. I said, well, they've only done it 100 times before. I mean, my friend's charity got taken over by some of these people, and it's the same people that were paid by Extinction Rebellion. It's the same people you see on Black Lives Matter. I mean, This is the thing. People don't realise that with this new big communitarian society, there's things called professional activists, but also the intelligence community are not going to let you do anything which is against the national interest. And speaking the truth is against the national interest, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So this is a point. Now, there's also another point, Jane, that I think is quite important. Speakers, I would say, definitely David Icke, he has in his own mind a very big kind of following, and he does have a big following. But the point is that David Icke is about David Icke. The mere fact that he stood up there and bowed to the audience as though it was his gig, I found it extraordinarily offensive. I mean, I do like a little bit of humility, and there was none on show. And what he did was go through the speeches of the last 20 years. It was lazy. It was rhetoric, lazy rhetoric, I would call it, and pointless. He didn't have anything to say, so why was he there? Good question. Same with Piers Corbyn doing his Citizen Smith bit, shaking his fist. Doesn't know enough about what he's talking about. Now, I worked with Piers for a few years. He was very good on housing activism. In other words, the social cleansing, which is all Agenda 21, right? So when I saw the Agenda 21 policies being brought in, I got Piers on my show along with real activists who were getting their properties taken from them and fighting back, like people on the Aylesbury estate. Piers was meant to be standing up for social cleansing and all the rest of it. His climate change stuff was okay. We did some talks together. Now, the point is that there's a problem here because there seems to be a conflict of interest going on with these people who are at this so-called protest, which is basically an event which is being organised to, in my view, control the narrative. Because if they weren't there to control the narrative, I would actually probably get up and speak because I've got some very powerful things to say. I'm not blowing my own trumpet. I'm not going to get.
You're not allowed to speak. This is the reason, because you are a proper activist. This is the reason they shut you down. The amount of emails and articles I've sent to other activists, and you just get completely shut down, blanked, and you think, okay, I'm just doing it on my own anyway. But this is the reason why they won't let you in. They build up around. I mean, it's almost what I've been seeing lately is almost like people like Piers and such like. They're being surrounded by these morons. They're almost like they're handlers.
Yes, that's a good point I wanted to bring up as well. So in other words, what happens is these people who are very audacious can come in and they just take over everything, and the speakers are probably just concentrating on what they're doing, saying, oh, they're organising that. It's a little bit like being on a tour or something like that. Say you go and do a gig in another country. You've got, they're the people who are picking me up at the airport. That's the tour manager. He's going to be driving us around, and these are the people who are booking. Yes. So what happens is, all of a sudden, you'll get a load of people around you. You don't know what the hell they're doing or who they are. But that's no excuse with something like this, in my opinion, because it's a very small thing. I think there's 3 groups. There's Stop New Normal. I think that's Pia's group. And then you've got this Stand Up X, which looks very communistic. And then you've got Save Our Rights. And there's another one.
And don't forget the E202 as well.
Yes, Event 202, I think it's called, isn't it? Yeah. Now, the thing is, what I noticed about a lot of these sort of people who get involved in this thing, they completely blank my show. Absolutely blank it. Which is very odd, because I've had this ever since I was at that People's Voice. My show there was absolutely shut down and marginalised. I've always found this, didn't really understand why at the beginning, but maybe it's because I'm completely 100% committed to what I'm doing. And I'm not really in it for the reasons of show business. I used to be in show business. Even when I was in show business, I didn't want to be in show business, because I found the people just were absolutely draining and horrendous. But the point is that when I went on stage, I did a good job. Then I stopped doing it. Now, the thing is, what I've noticed, this is turning into show business, because there's people who are hanging around who are acting as though they're VIPs. And I saw it with my own eyes at that first Trafalgar Square protest. I actually saw it. It was people saying, well, who are these lot? Who are these? They can't come in. It was like, what's this? Is this like trying to get into a club or something? Into some elite club?
It is basically like that.
Yeah, of course it's going to become like that, yeah.
Do you know, I think that they're almost grooming, and they're just pandering to these egotistical maniacs to get the job done. These are people who are complete attention seekers, and they're loving it, and they will do anything to get this attention. It's terrible energy, and they're going to get chewed up and spat out. They are they're very disposable. They're just like, throw away tissues and just use it to wipe up the next piece and then throw it away again. And you know what also, Mark?
Yeah.
You have to remember that, generations of protesters come and go. I've been doing it for a long time, and I've stuck with it. Now, a lot of people that go down the rabbit hole, or they freak out, they disappear, another person replaces them. So these people can get away with it because a lot of people don't stick at activism. They latch onto it like a fad, or something appeals to them like XR, or BLM or something. Or they get involved with it, and then they just fizzle off and get bored with it. I am a true activist. I want to make this world a better place. Right? I want to expose the people who are trying to stop that for their own egotistical, sakes, or a bit of money in their pocket, or whatever the reason is. So the audience is changing all the time, as well as the change agents are changing and the infiltrators. The show must go on.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, this is a bit of an area of interest for me, Jane, because I find what happens underneath the surface really interesting. That's, to me, the most important thing. And I've got a bit of a knack of it as well, because I've uncovered a lot of these people in the past. And also, even within this so-called alternative media, I've found that there are deep state assets, and they don't like me very much at all. And I've had a lot of problems with them talking behind my back, lying. I've been very faithful to these people until they turn on me, and then have to cut them out. So that's why my friends list has got really small.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing. It is quantity, not quality. It really is. That is just so true. But these alternative media sites wouldn't exist unless the deep state were involved in them, which is why I am certainly an advocate for activists who go it alone. And they're brave enough to go it alone. I take my hat off to them every time, because it is like that. You have to do a cull of people now and again. You have to cleanse yourself, literally, from people that are around you, because you don't even understand. Sometimes the closest person to you is your biggest enemy, and you don't even know it. And it's quite a scary thing. But you mustn't let fear, as stop you, because when you're on the path of truth, and you're doing right, gives you that power to go on, and it does empower you. And these others, they just don't stick around. They fall away. They fall away from you. You know, how many have you seen come and go?
Oh, there's been quite a few, Jane. I would say lots. And it's interesting because some of them, because the public don't remember, they will actually just turn up again and reinvent themselves. And then you go, oh, not again.
Sure.
You know, I mean, it's quite incredible. I was very shocked that Piers went on that show with that Lambramont Webber and that Charles Seven woman. Now, the fantasist, this Charles Seven, this fella had to get a court injunction to stop him libeling her. And she was set on me years ago because I didn't agree with her fairy story that the 7/7 bombings were done to shut her up because she'd written Strictly Come Dancing. That's it in a nutshell. So you're talking about something that's totally lunatic here. And then, of course, when you decide not to have anything to do with it, you get all these people attacking you. And it's interesting that the agent Bill Maloney was completely outed recently. And he was caught perverting the course of justice on camera, basically trying to get somebody to frame somebody for sexual abuse. It doesn't get any lower than that. And I always knew exactly what he was. However, there are people still connected with him or have been connected with him who've attached themselves to this COVID conspiracy circus. And the problem is that it's like any club. You're either in it or you're not in it. Well, I stopped my membership of it a very long time ago, probably on day one. So I'm now an exclusive club. I think Kath put in the chat here, she said, I've mentioned, you know, Windows on the World, and these people who are meant to be this sort of activist bunch, they just don't engage with it at all, because what they want is their stuff regurgitated. They want what I was talking about at the beginning of the show. Yeah. It's like bile coming up over and over and over again. You know, you can go to these places, they're telling you everything you already know, all right? Maybe they're putting some people may not know as much, you know, so to them it's new, which once again is where the audience goes around and round, you know. Did you go to that protest? No, I didn't. Now, I've been watching this COVID truth tour. I went to one here in my town, and I also have been watching the videos of certain speakers around England. Do you know what? Every speech was exactly almost word perfect, the same to the other one, the body language, everything, because they're playing to a different audience all the time. But they haven't got the intellect or the logic to realise that somebody somewhere is watching them and saying, hang on a minute, this is acted, this is scripted. How on earth can you know all of this information that you're giving out here in just a few months? It's taking me over 30 years to get where I am at the moment, right? Now, what really irritates me is people using the issue of child abuse to get a platform to speak with. You know, how dare you talk about such a hellish subject to get an audience and to make yourself, you know, do you know what I mean? Oh, absolutely. I abhorred those people who were around Bill Maloney or Maloney.
Oh, goodness, yeah,
because they were handling him and enabling him. Now, there's a lot of very nasty people doing that, because we're talking about deep intelligence here, because these people are controlling the narrative of this abuse situation. So in other words, if you've got real abuse there, they're there to get rid of it and bury it and basically send people off with misdirection. That's all they're there for. They're there to misdirect the public and waste their time, because not one of these so-called campaigners comes up with an actual case that's very credible or actually focused and go, okay, thing is, you see, if you uncover this stuff, I know for a fact, because a friend of mine did uncover a big paedophile ring. You have to have private detectives and people who are armed. These people will kill you.
Of course they will. Yeah, of course. And this is, you know, this is where it gets very dodgy. But going back to these people who are involved just on this level of protests and the crowds, I mean, I think there are more non-activists who are acting as activists, you know, than there are proper activists.
Well, I think Extinction Rebellion conclusively proved that, didn't they? With their
100%.
Fantastic protests of die-ins at Waitrose. It doesn't get any more entitled than that, does it?
And people falling for it. People are falling for it. And you only have to see, if you want to find out who isn't a real activist, just turn on the television and see who's getting a platform. You know, it's a painful thing to turn on the television. I understand that for most people. It is for me. But I have to watch it sometimes, as I did yesterday when I returned from London, because I wanted to see what dribble they were putting out there, you know, just to for the public. And can I just give you a little bit more information as well?
Yeah, you're fading away a bit there, Jane. That's better. I think you're back again now. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Perfectly.
Okay, well, I just want to make a little point here. Some news has been brought to my attention. My photograph is now being circulated over the internet. And apparently, I attacked somebody here in my own
By
town.
attacked, what do you mean? You didn't fly at them with a samurai sword or anything like that, did you?
No, allegedly I verbally attacked somebody. Okay.
You mean you told them off? Did you tell someone off?
I did nothing wrong. It's a false accusation.
Yes, that's what I meant.
Yeah. My tongue is mightier than the sword, I may say. But in this case, I was actually the one that was verbally attacked. But my photograph is being circulated, and attached to it is a piece of writing saying that I attacked somebody who's one of the speakers, who's a limping person with brown hair from Surrey. Right? I think we know who that is.
Well, it's not Long John Silver, is it?
That's my nickname.
I didn't see anyone there with a parrot.
She is a bit of a parrot, actually. She is a bit of a parrot. She does squawk a lot, and she does go on as well. But anyway, yeah. So there's a photograph of me circulating around on the internet saying that I was telling lies to Sky News and this kind of stuff. Anyone wants to contact me over that, I can tell them everything that happened and give them names as well if they're interested. Just to put that in. So, yeah, it was really interesting yesterday, Mark, really. I don't think there'll be another one.
Yeah, I think also it's kind of run out of steam. You can't just keep going to Trafalgar Square and bringing in the territorial support group. You know, I mean, it's not really a good gig, is it? It's not a good gig. It's a bit predictable. So, you know, I suppose you can go out there and say, we are individuals acting collectively. I am just in my biological spacesuit, and when I leave my biological spacesuit, I won't be here anymore. Thank you, everybody, and good night.
Do you know, I really am interested, above all of this, I'm really interested to see these people who were speaking yesterday. I'm interested to see how they're going to just kind of either fizzle out. What's going to happen to these now? Because, you know, a few things are coming to light, let's say, and I'm not the only one who knows these things. So I don't think these people are going to last very long. I think they might be the kind of people that we were just talking about that appear and then they fade away and do something else, you know.
Yes, that's a really good point. I mean, the great thing about the past is when I was learning about this, we made sure they had to go away. Which is much more fun. That is great fun because they do all this nasty stuff to you, right? They do all this nasty stuff to you. I had exactly what you described. They put my name all over the internet. I found the people who set up the website who were libeling me were the people I'd gone for a drink with because they own the company, own the website. I called them out on it. They were never seen again. But what the funny thing about it was that one of them said to my mate that he worked for French military intelligence. Well, these people must be bloody incompetent then if they can't even cover the tracks, or maybe they're just doing a bit on the side. I think they're just doing a bit on the side. Maybe I wasn't important enough for MI5 to kill me, you know, because they can do that now, can't they? But so maybe they just thought, we'll just go for a drink with Windows and we'll see how long we'll last. I'm sure he'll bore us to death by the end of the evening.
Yeah, exactly. But I think this whole COVID truth tour, this whole thing about, you know, this demos with anti-mask demos is so boring. It's absolutely boring because there's nothing nourishing there for people to get their teeth into. There's nothing raw and there's no direction.
No, it's not exciting, is it? No, it's not exciting at all.
There's nobody there to stand up to those people and say, right, this is what we need to do, right? But it's all fragmented everywhere. It's all been smashed to pieces on purpose, and it's all been made to look absolutely ridiculous. It was like a circus yesterday there.
Yeah, it wasn't very good. But when you look at some of the people who've got themselves into the positions there, you can see why. You can actually see why. Well, a circus is pretty good. A circus takes a lot of people to set up, you know, Jane. I mean, I know quite a few circus people. It's a big job, that, so don't knock the circus. It wasn't a circus. It was nothing like one. You know, they didn't even have a lion tamer, did they?
No, but the lions were there.
Oh, yeah, the big stone lions were there, yeah.
Yeah. You know, it was, you know, my other half pointed out to me, he said, you know, it's really like the epitome of Rome. It's like the bread and circuses. You've got the speakers here. You've got the police up on the top of the National Gallery looking down on everyone. It was like Rome and the Colosseum, you know, and the lions were there. The peasants were in the middle. People were fighting. It was just, you know, put them all in togas and rags and it would have been the same.
Well, it was slightly more dull than that, Jane, if you don't mind me saying so. But I suppose that's the way I looked at it. You know, maybe I want too much out of this, you know, because when I did my gigs, I would say, right, I am going to blow their minds by the end of the evening. And that was my aim. And often I did it, Jane, before the bingo and even sometimes before the stripper. So I did succeed. Now, that's the sort of attitude you need to have if you're going to have a successful talk. I'm trivializing here, but the point is, when I get up on stage and talk, I give everything. And at these drips who get up there and just drone on and on and on and on, it's so bloody boring for a start. Okay, we know you haven't got anything to say, but at least make it interesting. At least make it interesting, you know.
It was just provocation yesterday, basically. I mean, it was, you know, they were saying, oh, we want the police, you know, we want to help the police, or we want them, whatever they were saying, can't remember word for word. But, you know, some of the screechers that were there were just riling the crowd up, you know. It was blatantly obvious to someone who's experienced and goes to observe this thing. You know, it's, for me, it's like a psychology, you know, exercise. I want to go there to look at the people. I saw a lot of people in the crowd that I know from, you know, Facebook and stuff. And they're all like, they think they're little celebrities or something. I just can't get my head around it. You know, do something. Stop waiting for people to like all the time and do something. Just get organised. People are not organised. They really need to get organised. This is it. The people who are screwing us over are the ones who are organising our disorganisation.
Yeah,
get that.
That's absolutely it. So, yeah, thanks, Jane. I think it's been really good. Will you come back on again and chat some more about this? Because I find this sort of conversation could go into lots of different areas.
Be an honour. My pleasure.
That's fantastic. Well, it's always my honour to get people on. And do listen to us on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 8 p.m, RBN Network. And support us if you can. Because, yeah, there's so many of these misleaders out there. And the quality is very important to me. It's quality, not quantity, which is why we're going to call it a day now. We've been going an hour. I know I went for the first half an hour, but...
yeah, that's okay. That's good.
I think we got in quite some good points there. And we shall do this again very soon. Thanks to everyone in chat. There's been some very insightful things there about another sort of fake alternative media persona that's just appeared, going around interviewing people, and also not interviewing anyone who's going to be controversial on her YouTube channel, because, of course, they don't want to lose any custom, do they? And there's a lot of that going around, and that is the problem. Once you compromise over something, you're going to compromise over more things. And that's a big problem. I'm not compromising anymore. I am free. I am me. When I leave my biological spacesuit, then I'll know I've done the best job that I can. I'm going to take a bow now. Thank you, Wembley. Over and out. Thanks a lot, Jane. That was great. And thanks to everyone in chat. Really good stuff. And let's have some fun with this. Yeah, let's make the next event something to remember. Okay, thanks a lot, Jane.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Good night, everybody.